Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Cliff Consulting webinar, Accelerated M&A Integration with Analytic Process Automation. I am Felicia Robinson, the Vice President of Accounts here at Cliff Consulting. Thank you again for joining us. I'd like to tell you a little bit about Cliff. Cliff Consulting is a management consulting firm focused on solving strategic business problems within corporate finance, operations, and sales and marketing using analytics and big data technologies. Our solutions are focused on supporting decisions that drive profit optimization across the full product lifecycle. I'd like to take a moment to introduce our two presenters this afternoon. Our first presenter is Weston Drake. Weston is one of our principals and leads the business solutions practice. He started his career within the Big Four and focuses on providing to clients where finance and operations intersect big data. Our second presenter is Logan Lindsay. Logan is a senior business solutions consultant who specializes in supply chain optimization, inventory management, and data analytics and visualization. Logan has assisted with numerous mergers and acquisitions, helping companies realize over $200 million in synergies. I'd like to turn it over to Weston Drake.
Thank you, Felicia, and good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to quickly cover our agenda for the day. Our first couple of topics there are all about establishing some common understanding about our topic for the day. So we're going to dig into a little bit the merger integration process and where specifically we know analytic process automation can provide a great deal of synergy and value. Once we've done that, we'll actually cover what we mean when we say that, analytic process automation, or APA. Once we've established those ground facts for the group, then I'm going to discuss two distinct benefits that APA has for your integration after a merger is just completed. And I'll talk about them in general terms, and then I'll hand the microphone over to Logan, who is going to walk you through an example using the order to cash cycle. Once we've wrapped that example up in detail, we're going to have a Q&A session. So if you have any questions during the presentation, please drop them into the box there as part of the GoToWebinar tool off to the side. And when we reach the end, we'll cover them all. Once we've answered all your questions, we'll wrap and let you all get back to your day. So first, let's talk about the integration phase that we're most interested in. I've got here a simple view of pre-merger, the moment of a merger, the integration process, and then at the very end, that company C moment where you're all tidied up as one company. And APA has a lot of benefits that can bring value to every one of these phases. So we're not going to focus on all three. We're going to stay today focused tightly on that integration and process phase and how APA can basically help you accelerate your synergy capture. What we've got here in blue, you see a staircase, and I think, well, as you go through the integration process, what you'll find is that you have these incremental moments where you increase how tightly knit your companies have become. And every time you cross one of those thresholds, you take a step up the stair of synergy capture. So in our example here with Company A and Company B, every step along the way represents an opportunity where two systems came together or one department integrated into another. And typically it follows this path. It's fairly gradual, but as you go up each stair, you capture more and more value until you reach the point where you are truly one company and you've realized all the synergies possible. What we're going to cover with you today is how the analytic methods we're discussing can help make that a steeper staircase with larger steps, which in the real world might be a bad thing, but in terms of synergy capture is very good, right? So by making these leaps and making them more early in the process, you can capture more of the synergy value of the deal that you brought to your stakeholders. And that green section represents all the value that we know you can capture. Okay, moving on. When we say APA, what we're really talking about are automated analytic capabilities. What we're really talking about is using the next generation of data tools that empower business users in ways that they've never really been empowered before. Moving forward in this presentation, we're just going to say Alteryx. Alteryx is our firm's tool of choice for this type of work, and we have selected it for a lot of the good reasons listed out there. But before we get to that, I wanted to talk about some of the features of these next generations of tools and Alteryx specifically. So one of the great things about Alteryx is it permits business users to connect directly to original data sources in ways that haven't been possible in the past. So typically business users get to use whatever systems decide to give to them, right? There are typically canned report outs and specific data points they're allowed to or permitted to access. But there's often a great deal of information behind those reports that is unavailable to them. And one of the nice things about Alteryx is it can unlock some of those data points and allow them to do things that were perhaps not originally conceived or planned for when those reports were created, and that take a lot of time otherwise to bubble up to that user. So it gives them access to new information. It also permits them to process and clean that information in a more efficient manner and really only have to do it once. So we know that a lion's share of an analyst's time winds up being spent preparing information, not actually analyzing and presenting it. And Alteryx can flip the script on its head and permit them to spend more of their time actually doing analysis. That's because it is very powerful in terms of being able to clean, map, organize, harmonize, whatever descriptions you like best to describe cleaning and processing data. And once you teach Alteryx how to clean a specific set of data and match it with other pieces of data once, it knows how to do it and will keep doing it for you over and over again. So you don't have to revisit the same tasks. And you can also automate that process. Another key feature of Alteryx is that it puts in the fingertips of the business user some really powerful advanced analytics that you don't normally get a normal business user the opportunity to use. We're going to dig into some of those in a little bit more detail later. And then lastly, once they've done all this good work, they're able to publish what they've done in a variety of formats depending on what's most appropriate. So with Alteryx, you can print out a straight up report if that's really what you want, love, and need. You can push things into Excel files because we know that's sort of the common language of data in the corporate world. But more exciting than those sort of basic options is the fact that Alteryx is capable of connecting with whatever business intelligence suites you already have in place. So it can populate whatever dashboards and reporting structure you have for your organization. It plays nicely with basically all of them. Also, it can report direct or write rather directly to databases. So if you need the work that your analyst is doing to go right back into a system, that's something it can do. I've listed out in light blue some of the primary benefits of all this empowerment, aside from just being able to get the work done. Number one is speed. Alteryx is really fast. It's very fast to connect to things. It's very fast to process things. It can process huge volumes of data very quickly. But once business users get used to using it, and it has this really nice drag and drop interface, they can develop workflows very quickly too. So speed is really one of the best things about Alteryx. It also does provide automation. So RPA or repetitive process automation is a subset of what it can do. And then it provides a lot of access too. So, and I've touched on that a little bit down at the bottom, and we're just going to go bottom right here. Not only do your business users with Alteryx licenses have access now to more data, they can also generate workflows and promulgate that across an organization and give non-Alteryx users access to this powerful tool with some very simple steps so that they can share them out. Let me briefly mention why we've personally selected Alteryx as our data tool of choice. First, it's a strong company with a lot of resources, and that translates into a lot of support. So they are constantly improving. They provide a lot of direct company support, and there's also a large community of users that can also help with whatever questions you may have. So that's a really nice sort of base level benefit of using Alteryx. Another nice thing about Alteryx is the fact that the drag and drop interface it utilizes is very intuitive. So your average business user can go in there and start doing these powerful things without having to use any code. That's always a hurdle for folks, and Alteryx can take that away if you do not want or need to use code. Most important though, for us, is the fact that Alteryx is both wide and deep. It has a broad set of tools, and each one of those tools has a deep level of sophistication and capability. And for us, at the end of the day, everything else is nice, good, important, and that's really the core of this value offer. And then just mention in passing, lastly, we really like the gallery. We really like sharing our work outside of the core of Alteryx users, and that functionality has been very key to providing a lot of value for our clients, because it enables more and more people. It can be like a multiplier effect. So now that we've established some groundworks here, where exactly in the integration process are we talking about, and what kinds of tools are we talking about bringing to bear? I wanted to mention at the top here, there are two key or distinct benefits to using Alteryx in your integration phase. The first is bridge integration, and the second is those advanced analytics and having access to those. So I'm going to cover bridge integration first, and we're going to return now to our roadmap from earlier. And you can see we've got our company A, our company B. They hit the merger point in the middle there, and they start trying to get closer and closer together to act as one company. Typically, that process from the red dot that says merger to the dark green of where a company is operating as one true unified company, that process is going to be progressed by the IT group, right? They've got to do a lot of systems integration, and then it's also going to be progressed by the individual departments integrating with one another. And one of the brilliant things about Alteryx is that bridge integration is a powerful way for your organization to behave as though it's already in the green section, even though it's just started the integration process. And you can see that little bridge we've built down below there. What this is illustrating is the fact that you can take data sets, data sources, systems, and you can blend them in Alteryx to produce a unified data set, unified reporting to assist your hopefully unifying departments. And that is running ahead of the IT process. So it's operating almost like the IT group has already done all that hard work to integrate. And it has a number of benefits. First of all, it's fast to deploy this. So a typical IT integration, if it's very, very simple, might be a matter of months, right? But more complex integrations can take years. And until those integrations are complete, you will not unlock all of the synergies you knew about when you sold the deal and when you executed. So this permits you to fast forward to that moment where you are fully integrated and start to gain those benefits very quickly. Another nice thing is that it's easy to update. One of the challenges of integration is that while at the merger point, there were two conditions, company A's condition and company B's condition. We're moving through time and things are evolving. Nothing is staying still. So as IT wrestles with how to prepare for the future, in our bridge integration down below, we can very quickly react to any changes in bridge and business condition or systems condition, et cetera. And then another nice thing is that this can be fully automated, just like the real thing, if you will. You can set up jobs, you can have things run together, you can get that green data set down below, the blend of the two. You can get that updated about as frequently as you care to have it updated. And then lastly, it provides a bit of a foresight for the IT department. So while the IT department is hard at work, heads down, trying to bring systems together, if you've already provided temporary bridge, you've already had to wrestle with some of the things down the road that they may not have reached yet. And so you can loop back and inform your IT department, hey, FYI, when you reach this section of your process, you're going to have to deal with this problem. We've developed a temporary solution. Here's how what we're doing looks. And you can use that as kind of, cheat off my homework, if you will, to say, what is a solution that makes sense in our infrastructure? So this is a really important thing that effectively lets you operate in the beginning phases of integration as if you're already close to the end. It's a very powerful synergy capture tool. Okay, the other benefit that I mentioned was this access to advanced analytics. And this becomes really important in in day one, because when you had company A had a pretty good sense of how it should operate to optimize its business outcomes, right? They had a good sense of, well, when my customer X orders product Y, it should go to manufacturing facility A. And for the most part, those are all established known facts and patterns that over the years the company has developed to best maximize profits. However, when you've got your A company and your B company together, the whole point is for those two companies to integrate. And the only way you're going to re-answer all of those questions is with some serious heavy lifting on the math side. You want to be able to optimize your new organization, not just A optimized in its silo, B in its silo. And that's where these tools really come into play. And historically, these tools have been the kinds of things you might find in a data science department, someone who is very math heavy and strictly focused on these types of questions. But with Alteryx, all of a sudden these tools are in the hands of the business user so they can move more quickly. They're also closer to the question, right? And as soon as you can, you want to start re-optimizing so you can capture synergies. So that's really what that first icon is all about, is that optimization process. And there are a number of questions that optimization answers. I've given you a very short list on the right there, and you can see how these directly tie to synergy capture. The most obvious of which being, which facilities am I going to need now that I'm company C? If you can optimize your footprint, optimize your customer service path, then perhaps you can find facilities that are no longer required and capture some savings there. As part of that footprint analysis, another tool that Alteryx puts in the hands of common users is geospatial analytics. And this is something that historically is just not accessible to your typical business user. And when we say geospatial, we're talking about calculating footprints, calculating delivery routes, confirming, how far away a customer is from a given facility. Anything that has to do with taking a look at the map and trying to figure out how to optimize footprints or figure out where there's overlap, those geospatial tools are really powerful, especially when combined with optimization, and can really help you capture those synergies more quickly. Lastly, I wanted to touch on predictive. Frequently when we have an integration, we talk a lot about cost savings, and that is certainly an important component of integration, value capture. One of the things, though, that hopefully you've pitched as part of the deal is that you can also have some revenue synergies. So rather than just saying, well, we're going to take the sales of company A and we're going to add the sales of company B, and that's going to be company C sales, there ought to be some synergies there too. And being able to anticipate what those additional synergy revenues are going to be is really important. And that's where some of the predictive tools come into play. So those are our two key advantages, the bridge integration we went through, and then also these advanced analytics. At this time, I am going to hand things over to Logan and let him walk you through the order to cash specific example.
Hey, thanks, Weston, for that overview of APA and how it can be better used to operate out in front of a more traditional IT integration. What I'd like to do now, is take us through a more traditional, here we go. All right. So Sorry about that, guys. What I would like to do now is take the remaining time to dive deeper into two portions of the order to cash cycle and really discuss how Alteryx, in combination with the principles that Weston covered earlier, can really help us to unlock savings as quickly as possible, especially those synergies that often can't be unlocked until the two companies are further along in that integration process. The first example we're going to dive into really focuses on confirmation and scheduling of orders. Here we're focused on how we forecast both our demand and our sales and how that translates into the production schedule. It's going to be really difficult for us to service our customers if we're not successfully forecasting as one holistic company now that we're newly merged. The second example we're going to take a deeper dive on really focuses on our ability to resource our customers to different production facilities, allowing us to really leverage our new company's footprint to drive not only transportation and variable costs, but even as Weston kind of alluded to before earlier, is we're really going to enhance our ability to increase throughput, which is then in turn going to increase our revenue. Throughout these two examples, I'm going to briefly touch on how some of these same steps taken here can really be leveraged to help with our ability to receive and track sales orders from customers and to kind of help streamline our reporting and data management process. And as we go through these examples, we're going to be kind of approaching them with the following three lenses in mind. That first one, descriptive, which is really focused around providing clarity and understanding to how we have performed and behaved historically, as if we've always been one company. Until we can get that full view of how we've operated in the past as if we've always been merged, it's going to be really hard to provide the kind of insight and visibility to our business that's going to allow the business leaders to drive things forward. From there, we're going to take a look at that predictive side of things, which is really taking this clarity and understanding that we've gained through our descriptive analysis and using it to better understand what's going to happen in the future. And then lastly, it's going to be around that prescriptive side of things, which is this optimization piece that Weston's talked about, which is taking that predictive understanding and really using it to optimize and allow our business users and enable them to really make the best decisions. With that, let's take a closer look at an example of a demand and production planning model. So every business is going to have their own forecasting process. And the basis of this forecasting process is going to be built on historical data. And pre-merger, this historical data, pre-merger loading this historical data into your forecasting process, it could have been just as simple as exporting data directly from your order management system. However, post-merger date, this is going to be a completely different story. Historical data can now come from two or more systems. I know Weston and I have both experienced mergers and acquisitions where the acquired company is a patchwork of systems where every facility that they have has their own order management or their own production system. We could be talking about a situation where instead of just the two different data sources feeding into our historical data, we could have as many as 6 or 7 different data sets that are coming from both systems or Excel files that all need to be merged together. And not only does it just need to be merged together from these multiple systems, it's going to also need to be translated into that legacy format and nomenclature that you're used to seeing. Questions that used to be as simple as how much of a certain product did customer A buy last month or over the course of the year is going to become like a really labor-intensive exercise of translating customer names, customer locations, and product names. And this is going to be challenging because every system could have a different customer name for the same customer. We could be getting into some complex analysis around how do we compare these addresses to figure out, is this customer location really the same as the one in the other systems? And even things as simple as your products are going to be, there's going to be situations where you're going to have the same product could have 2 different SKUs based on which system it's coming from. And so we're going to have to really take the time to merge and combine those together in a way that's going to allow us to kind of effectively load this data into the process. And I could easily spend the rest of the webinar just talking about the intricacies and the importance of this historical data alignment exercise and really how quickly it can become an Excel nightmare as every group in the organization is simultaneously trying to splice these Excel files together every week just to start the normal day-to-day process of keeping the business running. where alternatively, Alteryx, through this no-code capabilities, is going to enable what we call automated citizen-developed tools. And by this citizen-developed tools, what I'm referring to is really our business users outside of IT. And so Alteryx is going to allow us to enable this group of individuals with that deep understanding of both the business and the industry to kind of set the pace and really help us to develop an automated process to align our historical data across the systems. And so this aligned data is then in turn going to become the foundation for every analysis, report until the completion of that more traditional IT integration. And the beauty of this is that once we've enabled these users to build that process and they have something in place, as Weston talked about before, it's really easily going to be disseminated and shared without all of the groups in the organization, really creating that one source of truth that we're striving for during this process, as we want one source of truth that everybody can run their analysis off of and that everybody can base their decision making off of. And this is all going to be able to be done without unnecessarily taxing these IT resources. We don't want to run into a situation where we're really heavily relying on IT to run our day-to-day operations. We want to allow them to focus on this, completing the full integration through the different systems and getting everybody onto one system. And this historical alignment, what it really is that first step of the bridge integration process that Weston talked about earlier. It's going to become the foundation for a lot of the analysis that's going to be the key to unlocking the savings early in that integration. And with this process of aligning these historical data automated, what we can really focus now on is the rest of the forecasting process. And since everyone's forecasting process is going to be a little different, I won't drill too into the weeds here, but what I'd like to highlight is how Alteryx is going to enable its users to really leverage the capabilities that normally required those highly trained specialists, data scientists, or even that IT support. And Alteryx is going to offer this in that drag and drop capabilities for complex processes such as these like ARIMA models, time series, regression models. All of these are going to just be drag and drop now and allow us to complete these processes that usually allowed us, or that usually required us to bring in the IT folks or the data scientists to help us kind of build that process out. And this is going to let us really drive the business forward by enabling these business users. And once that forecast is complete, the process of aligning the historical data can actually then be run in reverse to retranslate that data into the needed format and nomenclature needed for each production facility. And this is something that happens all the time where during this merger integration process where as you go through combining the historical data and running through the statistical forecast analysis and you get that output, you're ready to run, you're ready to get started on the next step. But what we end up having to do is we actually have to disaggregate everything that we've just commonized so that we can reload that data into the native system for that particular production facility so that it can actually do what it's intended to do. And so that can be done through Alteryx's ability to spit things out as simple in like CSV formats, or if we have, or what we can even do is connect directly into these data sources and just have that direct connection feed. And as the process finishes, it can load right in there. So that's really going to help us streamline that and not hit those unnecessary bottlenecks when we're nearing the end of forecasting cycles or the end of process cycles when we're ready to really start to take the action needed. And so now that we have that integrated forecasting process and we have that better understanding of what our holistic customer demand is going to look like, and the key here is that we are no longer planning and forecasting as if we're two separate entities. And because of that, what we are ready to do is take that full look at our company footprint. So here in this example, those buildings that you're going to see, those are going to represent our production facilities, and then the customers are represented by those circles. And this is that pre-merger view of what our company looks like. And then the minute we hit that close date on the merger and that integration process begins, we're going to have a totally new customer footprint. And so here we've brought in 2 new demand facilities, and we've brought in a plethora of new customer and new customer demand. And so with that, one of the best ways for us to really start realizing synergies is through this cutting of transportation cost. And what this is, how this is achieved is through resourcing our customers from higher cost transportation lanes or modes to cheaper ones. And the minute we can do this, we start saving money every time that customer has an order shipped. Likewise, we can also build in and layer in more elements to this optimization by including not just the transportation cost, but we can start to look at the variable costs that each facility has associated with the products it's producing, and even the production capabilities within each facilities. Some of these facilities are going to be more efficient at producing certain products. Thus, with our new expanded customer demand, we can really resource these customers in a way that are not only going to minimize transportation costs, but we can start to maximize our throughput. And so as we do this, we're going to see our footprint change as some of these customers that used to be resourced to some facilities are going to find a new home or a new optimal location to be sourced from, and that's going to change our footprint. And really, once we understand what that footprint looks like, now we can start to really focus in on that next level where we can look at, as Weston had talked about earlier, where there's a lot of synergies to be saved, is where do we have a lot of overlapping production capabilities? Where's there opportunity to maybe consolidate some of these production facilities? Because that can be a great way to unlock savings. And I guess as a side note or another note here for this one, this specific example here is really focused on a situation where that acquired company shares similar products and production capabilities. However, really, this kind of methodology and these optimization techniques can be used in all integrations to really help capture those saving opportunities quickly and efficiently. For example, here, I could have just as easily, instead of production facilities, we could have had distribution centers or warehouses that are servicing our customers, or we could have done it in reverse where we've got our production facilities, and then instead of customers, we're actually showing suppliers that are supplying those customers or those production facilities. And so these principles here can be really applied to a broad range of the business problems within this optimization segment of the newly formed company. And with that, what I'd like to do here is highlight a few just example workflows to really show how Alteryx removes this complexity from these types of problems. And it does that through this drag and drop citizen developed techniques where we're really enabling those with that understanding of both the data and how the business operates to design these processes to help us unlock huge dollars in savings. The key here is giving the users the tools they need. And by users, I'm referring to the folks or the business users who have that deep understanding of the data and the business and have an understanding of what the problem is that we're trying to solve. And if we're able to enable those folks who understand those two pieces with tools like Alteryx, it's just drag and drop capabilities away from really completing these complex analysis that can then, once put in place, can just be rerun and automated on a reoccurring basis or whenever those questions arise. And these are really some of the most effective ways for us to capture these large dollars in synergies. But unfortunately, they often remain hidden until really late in this integration process. But with some of the techniques and some of the philosophies that Weston kind of talked about earlier, and as we've gone through here with some of these Alteryx examples, APA and bridge integration really allow us to unlock these opportunities far earlier in the presentation. And with that, I'd like to hand the mic back over to Felicia to review any of the questions that you all may have placed in the chat.
Well, I have a question here. If you, within a sales and marketing organization, could it be a possibility to use that same principle? Maybe this would be for Logan, in a sales and marketing organization, maybe in a retail sales and marketing organization, if you were bringing two retail companies together.
Yeah, absolutely. So just taking that retail example, in the retail sector, a lot of those stores and those facilities are going to be probably sourced through distribution centers. And so what we could do there is we could really optimize around which distribution centers are holding which products and how they're servicing those retail facilities, or we could even go up another stream on using some of the geospatial stuff that Alteryx offers, and we can even look at helping to determine where's the optimal place to place our regional distribution centers or these distribution centers in a way that's gonna give us that cheapest holistic cost to service those facilities. So yes, I think that's a great question, Felicia. There's lots of opportunities in all of the different industries and for us to really apply these optimization techniques.
You mentioned within the process of combing through historical data, you have a lot to do, a lot of mapping to do with customers and products. How specifically does Alteryx make that easier?
Yeah, I'll let you take first crack at that, Logan, and then I may fill in some pieces too. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Alteryx offers a lot of just some of this out-of-the-box capabilities with things like fuzzy mapping and with some joins and some keys that you can make as more experts on the business or the industry. And what it can do is it can automate those processes of going through and using that out-of-the-box kind of capabilities to really match where customer names may be very similar, but you might have some punctuation and some issues in there that's going to stop your more traditional VLOOKUP or Excel style matching. It's going to really allow you to kind of power through those challenges or difficulties. The other thing it's going to allow us to do specifically around that customer mapping, and especially with locations, is that there's some really cool features that you can bring in to with mapping of addresses and kind of commonizing where addresses are actually the same, even though they might not read the same, where a lot of your more traditional processes aren't going to have that ability. And then the other thing you can do is you can tap into some databases like Dun & Bradstreet offers some great data sets that Alteryx can tap right into that's gonna let you pull a customer by its business name, and then from there you can see the location associated with that business name. And so in situations where maybe one of the systems is outdated with an old company name, you can actually verify it just through some databases, just to make sure that what you're dealing with when you're working on merging that data set together is really the latest information that you need.
Yeah, and I'll just piggyback on that note. The Dun & Bradstreet database capability is really neat because that's a repository that reflects an official view of what a customer should be called, and it can help you, especially in scenarios where there's already been a lot of acquisition activity among companies. So, one company might have the legacy name of a facility, and the other company might have the new name of the facility, and they're both able to operate independently, but now you're trying to match the two. Dun & Bradstreet, you tap into that, it can tell you exactly what the new name is, and it can help you recognize that you're talking about, in fact, the same customer there. Another tool that is available that's a little more sophisticated is what's called regular expression technology that allows you to parse and look for very specific word and letter combinations, and you can bring some of that functionality to bear as well. That's a little bit deeper than the out of the box stuff that Logan was talking about, but very powerful.
Great, great. Our next question is, in your experience, how long does it take to establish this bridge integration?
Yeah, so the short answer is that it depends, right? That's always the answer when you're talking broadly about activities like this. I will say that on the short end, if you had a very simple process, really straightforward data sets, and you had time in advance of the integration to prepare, you could integrate a process or integrate a data stream within a day or two, just with a power working session between two parties. I think in our experience, generally, a solid integration is probably going to take about 3 days, 4 days of discovery, having a good conversation with both sides of the equation, your company A and your company B personnel, and really understanding exactly what the task is, and then maybe 3 or 4 days to actually put together a workflow and make sure that it passes all of your quality assurance checks. So I would say the average process in a vacuum is running about a 1 to 2 week process. And of course that can scale up if you have very complex, very large systems you're trying to combine. It's really dependent on how complex the procedures are. But it can be very short. But I can tell you this, I guarantee you it's going to be quicker than any other way.
I had one additional question. What's your favorite thing about using Alteryx on a daily basis?
I'm going to take this one first, Logan, then you're welcome to provide your answer too. I personally, they have this tagline in all the Alteryx universe called like the thrill of solving, and that's really genuinely true for me. I really enjoy having these puzzle pieces and being able to move them around in a very intuitive way and get what I was really looking for. You can sometimes start out a project and think to yourself, well, I have all the pieces. How am I really going to make this come together? And then through the process of answering that question, there's a lot of just fun in terms of getting to solve a puzzle. So for me, that's my favorite piece of it. What about you, Logan?
Yeah, a lot of those same things I also enjoy. It's really, for me, it's just how intuitive the tool is and how easy it is to kind of pick it up and learn new things, especially as they're constantly always adding in new features. My favorite piece about it would have to be around that optimization portion of the tool that I was talking about earlier. That really unlocks a lot of really cool opportunities for us to kind of look at the holistic view of things and find the optimal solution. And what's nice about it is some of the more traditional or tools that I've used in the past can kind of feel like this black box of, okay, I'm giving it inputs and it's spitting out an output, but I don't always necessarily understand why it's giving me that output. But what Alteryx allows us to do is it kind of gives you all of the decision-making pieces and everything. It lays it out right in front of you. And so you're able to really get in there and understand why something is deciding to do something a certain way, and if that really aligns with the business decision that you're trying to make. And on top of that, it gives you that ability to kind of pull the levers and twist the knobs that you need to really tweak the optimization and to tweak these business solutions in a way that are going to really reflect the reality of something that you can achieve. It's not just spitting out some solution that is a perfect world solution that can never be achieved. It allows us to really apply our real world business knowledge and understanding to give us a solution that's better than our current state and also achievable.
That's all we have for Q&A.